Okay, now we can start. First of all, thank you all for coming today. So give yourself a pat in the back because it's Sunday morning. And I know it's not an easy thing to come here to listen to someone talk about ethics in AI. We're going to use a lot of online tool, which is here. Sometimes going to be a different link, but this is going to be the main one. So appreciate if you can go already online and set up. There is pretty easy when you open and go directly to it. Okay, so it's working. Oh yeah, now we can start. All right. So I also want to do some land acknowledgement. Mine is a little bit different. So before we started, we want to appreciate that the land we gather here virtually and in person. Amiska Watse Waskaigan or Edmonton, which is a Treaty 6 and Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4 territory and the traditional meeting ground, important for many Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live in this territory. And we hope that this acknowledgement do not only serve as a routine task to ease the mind of us colonizers, but instead serve as a reminder that true reconciliation demands concrete actions. And we start a workshop. I don't think that's going to work because I'm going to come back and forth. So I'm going to use as a mic as properly. Again, we're going to use a lot. Be prepared to use it. And right as a bat, I have introduced myself. I'm going to get to this point. Don't worry. I just want to test your moral compass here because it's ethics in AI. So what else do you expect? So we're going to check how your ethics are, warm it up, use that the logic that when you go to the cashier and ask, do you want to donate $2 to the starving children? And you say awkwardly, no. So use that. I want the good feelings and the bad feelings around that. There are wrong answers, by the way. In this case, saying no is good because they're going to use your money as a tax deduction, so you should do yourself. However, I don't think any of you are donating to the starving children, so save those $2 every time they ask you, and by the end of the month, you donate it, okay? See, already making you all ethical. It's working. So let's check what would you rather? Would you rather lose your keys or lose your phone? Go. All right, lots of people like to lose the keys. Interesting. Yeah, because when you lose your keys, you still have your phone and you can ask for help. I think the logic is good. Okay, it's working. Let's go to the next one. Exactly, it's much easier to replace your keys than your phone. Now, would you rather always hit a red light for the rest of your life, or always get low internet after the sun goes down? Feel like you're all very addicted to TikTok because you're choosing the red light? Good to know. I'm getting to know my audience. Okay. And let's finally go to the last one, which is, would you rather give up air conditioning and heating for the rest of your life or give up the internet for the rest of your life? I think I know the answer for this one, but just in case, let's check. Yeah, I'm not surprised here. I mean, the conference is on AI. You need internet for that. So. Okay, we're all gonna freeze to death. Good to know. But you're gonna have internet and you can, stream it while you do it. All right, so let's start about it with that. My name is André dos Santos. I'm a machine learning educator at the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. I create and deliver content on AI and also ethics in AI, a specific workshop, which I'm going to talk about it. So my background, I have a master's and PhD in computer science, specifically in artificial intelligence and probabilistic graphical models. Prior to that, I have a bachelor's in industrial engineering. Before Amy, I actually worked to the U of A as a postdoc where I research synthetic data generation for transactions. And I also study causality. That's a pretty good summary. So the learning outcomes for today. So I want to make sure you have the same idea. We're gonna have a strong foundation understanding the ethical questions in AI. We're gonna discuss the impact of fairness first approach in AI adoption, identify ethical risks, plan for the next steps. Is a high level. Overall, we're gonna do some practical case studies together. But one more question, because I forgot, this one's an important one. Do you think we'll be more ethical after this workshop? Okay, good. Remember, there's wrong answers. If you said yes, no, you're not gonna get more ethical. You cannot do that with a workshop. I hope that's very clear to all of you. You cannot do that. The ethical part comes with practice, by knowing everyone around you, that knowing that your experience is not the same for other people. But then you might think, okay, but that's a workshop. We're gonna train that. So we're gonna get more ethical after the workshop because of the practice, right? Also, no, how can you do that? The events here are not true. You're not gonna practice. They're all, pretend. I did try to bring like one important person and then 5 other, and then, to be a lever. And then people are gonna like choose who to hit with a trolley, but it was very hard to bring the trolley here. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna keep up with the pretend part. And there's always that pragmatic person that tried to put like the 5 + 1 and hit all 6. So like, that's fair because everyone dies. So we're not gonna use that. We're gonna use we're gonna use the pretend examples. Okay. And if you're concerned how long it's gonna take all the time. I'm gonna use all your time because I actually putting a lot of case studies here. I adapt that from the course that I give to business leaders. So a little bit different. I actually added 2 extra case studies specifically on the medical field. If you want something to look forward to the lunch, because that's how I'm getting paid anyway. So we all can look forward to that part. I'm just kidding, not a little bit. Okay, so just to level set, I think everyone knows we were in a conference about AI, just to make sure we all have the same understanding about AI. What is artificial intelligence? Is the big umbrella term. It's about the way of we can mimic human actions towards with computers and robotics. It's not a new thing. It started back on the 40s and 50s. If you watch the Imitation Game with the story about Alan Turing, that's when it started. So we have artificial intelligence as a concept for a long time. The thing is, the definition of artificial intelligence is a moving target. It adapts as we humans also adapt to new challenges. And then we have machine learning, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence. Usually when people talk about artificial intelligence nowadays, is about machine learning, which is the ability to extract information from data. So it's a subset of AI that uses statistical techniques to give computers the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. The biggest part of AI right now takes a good chunk. It's just all people talk about it. But I just want to keep the word here for the future items we're going to talk is that it's not explicitly programmed. And then we have deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning. With the computational model, computational power that we have, we can make those very well connected and deep models that can do amazing things. So machine learning is possible whenever there's plentiful data to exemplify a solution, useful when human design programs won't work or are too expensive and ethical when the potential for human harm is considered, understood, and mitigated. And that's why we're here. So what AI can do, a lot of things. We're in this workshop for a couple of days. I'm not going to talk about what I can do, but I like to talk about this ChatGPT. Actually, I gave a workshop this Friday on it. If you haven't used it yet, you're a little bit late to catch up with it. So ChatGPT is amazing. Just to have fun, let's use it. So I ask, what is ChatGPT? Explain a poem. I like that you can talk with it. I'm just gonna read the first one. In the digital realm where words abound, where humans and machines can be found, there's one who stands out among the rest, a chatbot who can pass the Turing test. It's amazing. So when ChatGPT happened, I brought that to the institution. Like, we really need to talk about that, but because that definitely is gonna change the way we work, the way we study, the way we do life. Right? We already interact with AI in so many ways. The time we wake up, the coffee you take, the coffee, probably the coffee machine you use already use some type of AI, and ChatGPT just brought it to attention, and now AI is getting a lot of hype, more than before even. But here we're going to talk about also when not to use AI, which is sometimes it's not the best solution. So it's not useful. It's a powerful tool, of course, but it's tricky and potentially unreliable. So you should not use AI when there's a simpler tool that can do the job. Sometimes companies want to default to go, like, let's use AI, and like a spreadsheet on Excel is going to do just fine. When you need an explanation rather than a prediction, and when available data has problematic bias or does not match the operational data. Now, I want to go straight to the case studies because this is a warm-up case study right off the bat, and then later we're going to talk about the strategies and stuff like this. So we want to progress. We practice, progress a little bit, practice, and we build on the knowledge here together. And this is how all case studies is going to happen. We're going to give an introduction case. Then we're going to identify the stakeholders and their objectives, like what are the goals with that tool specifically. Then we're going to identify the risks, and finally, the strategies to mitigate those risks before and during implementation. So the first workshop here is going to be reviewing patient triage with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, if you haven't, I think now you've seen what it can do. It's a great conversational AI tool. So let's imagine the scenario where we have a healthcare organization that's considering using the AI technology to review patient triage. So the goal is of the AI systems to help healthcare professionals prioritize and manage patient care based on their medical needs and their urgency. So potential benefits is improve the patient outcomes, increase efficiency, and reduce healthcare costs, which is, I think, a good idea. However, of course, we're worried about some risks. So now let's do this together. And I want to know your input. So the first stakeholder we're going to consider here is the healthcare professionals. Their goal is to enhance their work and reduce the workload, enabling them to focus on more critical tasks. Now we want to know about the concerns. What are their concerns? I think you have 5 places. You don't have to fill them 5. Okay, 1 is good. Send them there. Let them analyze them together. Good. So I want you to think about the healthcare professionals. What are their concerns with using the tools? Good. So yeah, all those concerns, of course, are there. Incomplete data, privacy, of course, the accountability, I think, is the important one. So I think for the healthcare professionals, one of the main concerns is that the AI system might not be accurate, leading to incorrect patient triage and potentially harmful outcomes. And then they can be reliable for that, even though the machine did the choosing. Very good. Now, what are the strategies that we can use to avoid those issues, specifically for the healthcare professionals? Yes. So in the event of a wrong, like a problematic outcome, then review it. Like make sure you have a policy to review the answers ahead of time. Yep, that's a very good one. Actually, that's one of the most important one, which is always monitor it, right? We need to monitor it. And I think that's the key thing. It's good. It's good. Everyone's on the same page, and that's the proposal of this first part of the workshop. First, to warm up and start looking for solutions. Decentralize, good. Human control monitoring to explain. Okay, hide the patient face. Yeah, that's for the patient privacy. Oversee the results. That's a good thing. Yeah, and healthcare professionals should make the final decisions. I think that's common sense and that's a good idea. So good strategies. We want to validate the AI system's accuracy by comparing the results with human triage. And we want to monitor the AI system performance regularly. But that's not the only stakeholder. Let's talk about the patients. Talk about this. So patients, their goal is to receive timely and appropriate medical attention, feel cared for, and achieve positive health outcomes. What are their concerns? Yeah, privacy is a big one, bias. Incorrect diagnosis, quality, unfair treatment, racism, which is related to bias, the accuracy. Yes, third-party selling data, it's a big one. If you use those apps that apply those filters on AI with you, or the swap faces, or the make you old, very likely there's saving your picture on the database, by the way. I think very unlikely you're all reading the terms and conditions. So be aware of those apps that do some nice tricks on your photos. Okay, yes, so the concerns is, of course, you wanna leave. So first one, I think is important is that it dehumanizes their care experience. We're talking with a robot rather than a healthcare professional. Erodes trust and violates their privacy, which is the main one here. And I appreciate you all coming to a consensus. Now, what are the strategies that we might use to avoid these issues? We're going to implement the AI system. You're responsible for it. What can you do to address the concerns of the patients? Oh, deepfake is showing up here. Nice. Very good answers. Appreciate that. All those answers I'm going to provide later. I'm going to be on my website for you to analyze. So it's a collective information together. Of course, I cannot go through all of them. But just highlight some of the ones, which is gain trust, which is very simple, but gain trust it is. So what you need to do first is to address their concerns. You cannot ignore it, which is be surprised, but often when the companies are implementing AI, the main thing that we're saying is like saying that to those companies, are you addressing that? Are you talking with the people affected by it? And that should be the number one item, address those concerns. Ensure the privacy, the patient's privacy and confidentiality are protected, and monitor patients' feedback. That's another big strategy we're going to talk about. That feedback sometimes is completely ignored. Companies, they do have a feedback system, they have a question and answers, they have a review on Google Maps, but they're not checking it. And very good feedback are there. So you need to address those concerns. Okay, I missed one. Now, I'll throw a curveball here because it's easy to play for the good guys. But we are in a capitalist system, so we need to think about money. And one of the big items here is insurance companies. Obviously, they will be concerned about that. So I want you to think about if you are responsible for this AI system, the insurance companies want to minimize healthcare costs and maximize their profit. What are their concerns now? Regarding ethical governance and fairness concerns. By the way, if you're in the group, you can chat, you can talk with each other. It's a workshop. It doesn't have to be that silent, or you can talk out loud. But I get it. It's okay. It's Sunday morning. I'm with you. I took like 5 shots of caffeine here. Good. One big item is accuracy. For sure, the insurance companies will be worried about accuracy because they may generate false positives or false negatives, leading to fraud and higher healthcare costs and loss of revenue for the insurance company. That's pretty simple. Yeah. Good. Now, okay, now give for the insurance companies strategies they might use to avoid those issues. Just I know it's very related to the same strategies we talked before. Just one item specifically that I want to see the answer. Great liars. This actually makes sense. Okay, I was not expecting. Okay, it's a good one. I was looking for establish a framework for data sharing and develop a validation process for the AI system's accuracy and monitoring the AI performance regularly, updating the validation process and data sharing framework as needed to ensure accuracy and prevent fraud. Basically, they want to prevent fraud, and the data sharing has to be appropriate because they're dealing with very sensitive information. So why AI governance? So just to level set again, just talk about the keywords. We're going to use that a lot, and sometimes you got to make all mixed. So ethics is the umbrella term again, same as AI was an umbrella term, where it encompasses governance, fairness is the high level idea. And then governance, we're talking about regulations and governing bodies in AI, the mechanisms to govern and control AI research and deployment. Now, fairness, we're gonna have actually a great talk person from the award fellows at Amy here, talk about fairness. She's a specialist in fairness. Quite excited to hear her discussion. Fairness is a specific research area in machine learning that attempts correcting algorithmic bias in automated decision process. You'll be surprised because fairness seems like very straightforward. You have to be fair, but fairness is quite tricky, and we're going to talk about that. So governing issues. Why do you have governing issues on AI specifically? Because for software engineers, if they have a problem, it's very easy to detect a bug. It's not working. Where's the problem? It's right here. It's missing a semicolon. It's usually 90% of the cases missing a semicolon. Now, for machine learning, we cannot guarantee that. It's learning for data. It's not working. I don't know why. Especially for models, there are like deep learning, which is a good chunk of the models we see nowadays. They're huge models. They find amazing connections, but have no idea what those connections are. And specific on medical field, explainability is a big term. So interpretability and explainability. If you don't know the difference, interpretability is about the model. It's inherently transparent or not. Some models, you can follow the question all the way to the solution, and you can find the reasoning. It's about the model. So Bayesian networks, decision trees, they're transparent models. Now, deep learning models were very condensed, a lot of layers connected. They're not interpretable. Now, explainability is the ability to connect the answer to the solution, is the mapping between them. And usually explainability then applies to the not interpretable models. And now, why is ethics different in machine learning? Because of those items that we just talked about it. For no machine learning, software outputs are usually traceable, understandable by humans. Modern machine learning models give out, produce outputs which cannot be understood. And very importantly, ethics is different from machine learning because we have a scarcity of machine learning experts. I know it's a conference full of maybe experts here, but it's not that common. And if you work with any company, you see that AI professionals do not, there's a high turnover. It's one of the professions that people are jumping from job to job to get higher salaries. Also, it says a lot about the area, but it's hard because you're going to start a project on AI with someone that's important. And then the ethics of AI, if it's not involved with that person that is actually leading that, and then this person leaves, a lot is left and you cannot move on with your the AI adoption. And another thing is different in machine learning is the regulations. For no machine learning, there's a lot of mature regulation. For software engineering, there's a lot of standards of how they have to deliver the products. Now, for machine learning, we are so far behind, like so far behind on regulations, like it's close to zero. I'm going to talk about the regulations later as the second part, what we actually have and the bills on the Canadian government specifically. But we're very, very far behind. So there's no much regulations about machine learning. What can it deliver? What can it use? Who's affecting is still up to the people applying, and no other regulations like the government, no regulators that can talk about it. So finally, why bother with ethics? Trust of the public, expectation of the government at some point, political support, social contract, cost of unethical uses, media attention, and regulations. And it's important to address here, especially when talking to business, we always talk about cancel culture. And cancel culture, if you're not familiar with the concept, is said to be a movement to remove respect status or to cancel a person, place, thing, a business, a professional, based on offensive behavior and transgression. So even though it's called cancel culture, which is usually, most of the case, an overdue accountability for the privileged. We're not here to judge who's going to cancel or not. The point is, we're here to mitigate risks in AI, okay? So cancel culture should not, it's not the focus. We're not doing because of cancel culture. We're doing here because we want to mitigate the risks AI can bring because it affects people, and we care about people, hopefully. Except the people, the guy that want to do the trolley with the 6 people. And another one is that get woke, go broke. It's another term that businesses hear a lot, professionals hear a lot. It's like, oh, you're doing this, you're definitely gonna leave, you're gonna hate the opportunity, and people are gonna stop using your business because you're going woke. First of all, woke is, it is the idea of the attempt to align themselves with social justice cause, and now they say they're reliable to lose customers. The thing is, it creates a false parallelism that profits suffer from inclusivity and diversity, which is not true. Being inclusive is not being woke. It's called living in society. It's caring for the others because we are affected by it. And that's, we need to care about ethics in AI. And that leads to our next case study. Now you have some more understanding, maybe, maybe not, maybe yes. The thing is, I also want to bring here something that's outside of the medical field, just because ethics is different from different fields, because you take care for, you have to account for other aspects, but overall it affects the whole society. So once you take out of this aspect, also because not everyone here is on the medical field. So I think I want to level set to everyone to have the voice on saying stuff that is not so medical. But don't worry, I have another example later. So this case is the parole automation. So a company, let's say called ABC Software, wants to train a model to predict the risk of recidivism, which is the probability of reoffend again. So I have criminal, what is the probability of this criminal do another crime? The model is trained on historical records of thousands of parolees, which is people that ask to be released. The model assigns risk based on over 100 factors, including demographic, like age, gender, etc., behavior data, like prior convictions, violent crimes, etc. And the model informs judge's decision on whether or not to grant parole. That's the background. So let's go to the stakeholders. What are the stakeholders? Out loud. There's no. Yes. Yes. People receiving, like, right? It's affect us. Yeah, models make decision if you be free or not. The people. Who else is affected by it? Public is a good one. Everyone, like, you're walking down the street, like, here's a person that the AI let loose and it's a mass murderer. What? Sure. We the people. Yeah. Yeah. Taxpayer specific, yes. Law enforcement, of course, the judge and the court system, people that are actually using the system. Judicial system, very good. We're missing one key important one. The people that are making the AI system, the software company, the business leaders. So those are I'm not considering people here, the public, because the public is kind of understood. I want to focus on the software company leaders, judge, court system administrators, and parole candidates. Now, this one, we're going to do a little bit different because I want you to talk with each other and focus on specific strategies. So we're going to split it into 3 groups. Each one of you going to have your own QR code. We're going to split those tables here. First one, those in the middle, second one, and you there as the third one, okay? And then people online can get to choose. And we're gonna go software company leaders for you. We're gonna do judge and the court system administrators for you in the middle. And the parole candidates for you there. Just to, yeah. So we're going to start with the potential ethical and governance fairness concerns. Is it working? But you have to use this specific, it's a different QR code now. With this? Is it working for you? It is correct. It is correct. Is it working? No. Okay. So go to menti.com. I think that's the easier way. Don't forget about the QR code. And those are 3 specific codes. I don't know why I can see why the QR code is not working because I duplicated and they're all the same QR codes. I forgot to do that. That makes sense. That happens. I'm sorry about that. It was very late night. That's why I need all the 5 shots of caffeine. So let's ignore the QR code. Go to the numbers here. Thank you. Working now? Yes? It's working now? Working now? Okay. Let's give it 5 minutes. Okay, people on the 1, let you put more inputs here. I just see data breaches. What are the rest? People online can join group 1. Okay, sorry, keep going. Okay, good. Now we're gonna move forward. I'm gonna check the answers later. We're gonna go to the strategies. So what strategies might you use to avoid those issues that you just inputted? Strategy, strategy, strategy. Okay, 5 more minutes. And if it helps, that is a competition. Okay, last minute. QR codes are working now. Yeah. All right, let's check for results. So what are the software company leaders, for software company leaders, what are the potential ethical governance and fairness concerns? That's group one. And they brought data privacy, data breaches, diversity of data, which is related to bias, accuracy, so we want accurate predictions, the corrupted data, and the predictive policing, and more even showing up. False positives versus false negative, very important ones. I'm going to talk about the later. I just want to go through your answers first. And for the strategies they came up with is setting appropriate factors eligible to get the parole. Important. Adversaries, right? ESL. Pour from all stakeholders. AI experts hiring for better accuracy. Data from different jurisdictions for diverse set of data. That's very good catch. And framework for approval from policymakers. And consider type of crime for false positives versus false negative. Also very important one. Good job. Very good job. Let's see group number 2, which is for the judges and the court system administrators. So what are the potential ethical governance and fairness for them? Well, a lot of answers, good. Accountability, reliability, I think is fair. Like the judge is gonna make a decision, can I trust? And then who's accountable for that? Data accuracy, not specific to a case, that's true. What if you're training and there's no data around the robbery or something, robbery unlikely, but for a specific crime, do we have enough data? Deferring to AI, perturbation of bias, discrimination is also fairness to bias, fairness of judgment, bias a lot, hacking, that's an interesting one. That's the first one. I never thought about that. Hacking, yeah, it's possible, especially if your person probably is related to hacking. Xenophobia, also bias, explainability. So that's a good one, as a good catch, was explainability. As a judge, why was that no choice? So explainability, a very important one, very good catch. Let's see the strategies they came up with. They should use as one of the source of information rather than the only thing that informs the decision. Good. Knowing when and when not to use AI. Incorporate learning about AI into law school. That's a good one. That's actually a very good one. Not using AI. Understanding the limitations of the AI system. Judges have the final say. Require representative from all backgrounds. Interesting. Committee of experts to oversee the result. Use the AI result blindly. Make decisions first and then read AI result. Very good. Really like, especially the one incorporating to law school. I think it should be part of the syllabus of all courses, to be honest. Good job. And finally, for the parole candidates. Major concerns, of course, is related to bias. We are already in a society that's quite biased. The court system is already quite biased towards people of color. So racism is going to be a big one. Like they already affected the way it is if you put an AI system. And the thing is, one thing we don't, especially me, my background is in causality. Data is just a shadow of the real thing, of the humans, right? The human thing are not totally expressed into the data. And the thing is, because it's an expression of people, and people are racist, people are homophobic, transphobic, and so on and so forth, the data is also going to be that. And then, of course, that's going to affect because the AI system is learning from data. So we have to be careful around that. I think that's the main one. People can change. That's a good one. That's true. Access to all data, subjectivity, misses important factors, faulty data, wrong decisions, and fair treatment. I think in the end that you never know. I hope you never become criminals, but imagine you're in that situation. Like an AI system is making decision of your life. If you're going to stay in prison forever, it's quite impactful. Very good. Let's see the strategies. Okay, tunnels are not an option. Many opportunity to review to explain the data being used to evaluate you. That's a good. Using representative data. Am I representative there? I remember, like, can I see, are the data only, on some specific demographic and a different one? It's not fair. Integration of AI with case worker, not standalone. Transparency, more features recorded, including interviews and more subjective measures. Unbiased data, human oversight, continuous learning, adding the knowledge, and access to explanation for decision. I want a role to release next time. Yeah. So I really liked the tunnels. I think that was the best answer. But of course, we're worried about transparency. I think that's it. You're there. You want to make sure it's being used. So why am I getting a 90% of, and I'm going to reoffend? Unless it's the trolley person, that person should stay in jail. Okay, let's go back to here, results. So in that case, I think we cover most of those items. There's not much I have to read, but let's see. Parallel decisions are normally consequential through high degree of scrutiny, what claims guarantees are being made, trade-off between intellectual property and transparency. Is the model making the fair decisions? Can I trust the data on which the model is trained? Is it even possible to get required data to evaluate the model? Like, can it even be possible to do that? The parole automation case for the judges and administrators concerns, the main one is, can I trust the model to aid my job? And the key point here is going to be explainability. Can I, to trust, I need to understand. And what you make of fairness guarantees the software company gives to you. The company, oh, this is a very accurate, it gives 98% of accuracy. Okay, what about the 2%? What do I do with that case? And for the people, is the severity of my punishment being amplified because of my race? Am I being treated fairly by the justice system? Probably not. Do I understand the reasons behind my parole decision? Can I challenge the decision? Does the court system understand the reasons behind my parole decision? So also explainability. Like, is the judge just blindly trusting? Yes. Yeah. I don't know. That's a discussion. Bring that, please, to the discussion panel that's going to happen after this workshop. I wish I could have the property to say that, which is a very good question. But to make things interesting, and hopefully that helps, this actually happens. That's actually used in the judicial system in the US. No surprise there. Which is an algorithm made by this company, now Equivalent, used by many courts in America. Is actually in place, is actually doing those decisions. And the algorithm arguably racially biased, no surprise there. Black people were generally more likely to be assigned higher risk of scores, no surprise there as well. Trained data is racially biased and problematic. So arrest records do not actually reflect the recidivism rates. No way of knowing if individual will recidivate if their parole is denied, because here's related to causality. You cannot do a counterfactual, if you know what counterfactual is, which is the imaginary work. So if you take a Tylenol pill for a headache and your headache goes away, good. But would your headache goes away if you have not taken the Tylenol pill? This question you cannot answer, which is this case here, and I hope that was clear by the example. So if you did not give the parole is denied, would they, this question, which is a philosophical question, study causality, that will help. Problematic reliance on formal fairness criteria metrics. So thing is, real case, and then in 2016, an independent nonprofit newsroom brought up how the system was unfair to Black Americans. So I'm just going to tell the story about it. They found the rate of false positives was higher for Black people, which means more incorrect predictions of being high risk if you're Black. And the rate of false negatives was higher for white people. No surprise. Fails to indicate that when a white person is higher risk. So the company that made the software said that their claims refuted their claims, saying that the system is fair because there are the same proportions of Black and white applicants in each risk category. Now, here's the issue. How does this metric define fairness? And here's the point. And please make all those questions about fairness for the next part after I'm going to talk about fairness, but just in here's going to be a high level. The thing is, why was that conflicting? Here's bring to the fairness idea. For the company that made the system, fairness is equal proportions. So the developers of the system have stated that it's fair because they're the same proportions of Black and white applicants in each risk category. But now for the news, fair is equal error rate. For them, it's unfair to Black Americans compared to white defendants because there is a higher error rate for Black defendants. I'm going to talk about fairness afterwards and how are they conflicting with a little bit more definition. I just want to talk about the case, and the impact, of course, was very negative media coverage. Of course, it had this point, potential individuals deny parole in a fair manner. Potential individuals granted parole incorrectly, so there's some mass murderers around, and likely they're white. Undermining of public confidence in AI solutions. Harmful for all companies working in the AI space, of course, now AI companies suffer as in general, and potential for legal jeopardy. Any other impacts that I have not mentioned here? The thing is, if you think about it, the idea is good, right? If you think on a perfect world, the algorithm is like, you're not taking the bias of the judge and put it on a machine that if it was not biased, it would be great. Think about it, right? The judge that could be white, could be transphobic, that could be homophobic, and make a decision for you are taking this bias off and making an overall case as like overall knowledge. AI is not like, we don't use AI for nefarious reason. Like AI is not a problem, people are the problem. But what could have been done different here? So more thought about the reliability of the training data, the things, and again, that was one of the classic case that they went with it and did not talk with people affected by it. More discussion with the stakeholders, third-party auditioning for algorithms is very important. We're going to talk about that as the strategies. Better understanding of the fairness of research in machine learning, because they use their metric, but there are plenty of other metrics. More cautious approach to such consequential decisions. Sorry, I clicked the right here. So what can you do? You leaders in that field. Now we're going to talk about some tools and help. So for the next case, which is going to happen after the lunch break, don't worry. We're going to now try towards this with the solutions to those strategies. So we know it's a complicated task, right? You cannot become ethical in this course. I hope it's very understood that in this workshop, you're not becoming more ethical. It's just thinking about, which is a good start. So it depends a lot on the organization, the industry you are in, the application being developed. There are also a variety of strategies, policies, and methods that you can leverage. Now, the thing is, your data scientists, machine learning research scientists might not have the training needed because responsible AI specifically is already very hard to find people that work on it. Now, people that knows about responsible AI is even harder to find. And not only that, even if the person's an expert on responsible AI, doesn't mean that person are aware of their own biases, right? Like I am if I'm going to do a system, what I think is important is really up to me. and even though I'm an expert on responsible AI, doesn't mean I will cover everything. So the ethical AI is a responsibility of everyone in the organization and beyond. It's not a destination, but an ongoing commitment and process. You don't make one AI system. You have an AI system that you are ongoing and always working to make sure is within the AI standards, ethical standards. So you have to examine, to challenge the decisions that go into developing and using these applications. So, so far it's very intuitive. Like whatever I said is just like, oh, okay, yeah, nothing new about that. However, you'll be surprised that a lot of people don't think this way, because on the whole application, when you get to apply the system, first on AI governance and responsible development and use of AI systems falls into multiple levels. So let's look at some of them. So first one is the industry consists of government, professional organizations, insurance, and auditing firms. The stakeholders are responsible for setting boundaries and ensuring that organizations are operating within them. So in AI, this is still an emerging area as we talk about it. There's not much regulations, and we must keep up with the changes. You may even choose to engage and work closely with these companies. I'm going to talk about one of them that you can participate and be part of the conversation on make those regulations. And then we go to the organizational leaders. They're responsible for keeping updated with emerging regulations and engaging with the industry partners. So leaders should be establishing codes of ethics and frameworks of AI governance, and then aligning hiring and training with them. And finally, we go to the development team responsible for following best practice on tracking, testing, and monitoring the AI system as used in software engineering, including creating robust auditive trails, test cases, and explainable system. And what is the point here is that a lot of companies rely on the developers. Hey, implement the system, make sure it's ethical, which is not fair. Like it should go all the way, it should go with the regulations, should go with the business leaders, and they just should follow guidelines, because even the persons and specialists, they still can be very biased towards their own beliefs. So yes, they should be part of the ethical conversation, but it should come from higher levels. Now let's talk about strategies. And I'll be a little bit it's a little bit underwhelming when I say strategies, because there aren't much you can do. It's like do this and you'll be ethical. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here having this conversation, right? But we can talk about things that have worked and things that you can start with. And some of the strategies clearly define policies and procedures. I think the whole workshop always on ethics and AI is that you have to talk about it. Comprehensive frameworks, testing, and ensuring ethical AI, making ethical concerns part of the business problems. You're making an AI system. Yes, you want to make money, but are you making part of business problems? It's something that is listed there as an item that will be prioritized. And utilize a variety of tools and strategies. Just don't need one tool, you need many tools to do that, because again, there's no one tool fits all. So the strategies goes like this. We have first team diversity, then fairness research in machine learning, and then robust ethical AI frameworks. And first one is team diversity, which is something I haven't talked about, but I have to, because we still see a lot of white men, the leaders, and people of color doing the actual work. So you want to be a team that spans a spectrum of gender, culture, education, work experience, economic status, family structure, etc. All of that as much as possible. So so diverse perspectives and experience catch issues that a single perspective might be blind to. And I know it's very obvious, but you need to talk that to leaders, and you are leaders and you can make this decision. So bring that forward and be part of the solution rather than the problem. But that's not enough, because you can have a very diverse team and not give them the opportunity to talk. So what's the point? So you need to empower all members to speak openly. Diversity is only useful if people can share their views. Otherwise, what's the point? It looks great on picture, but if they cannot talk, it's not working. And diversity is important at all levels and roles. It's not just hiring. People making decisions need to be there. People making the regulations need to be there. The business leaders, and of course, the developing team. And one example that I like a lot is that, for example, Apple first launched their health app, they promised to monitor all your metrics that you're most interested in. That was the slogan, which is quite important. 2014. But there's an obvious misfunction that was not actually considered. They didn't track one, especially important for women. Can you guess? Menstrual cycles, yes. So yeah, it is important for all of you if you don't have a menstruation. Which is interesting because obviously they didn't have women enough to track that. Which is more interesting now is that it became an issue in the recent years because with Wade versus Roe being overturned, now if you actually track the menstrual cycles, is a problem. So it's an ongoing process, right? Think about it. Good. Now, fairness research, we have a specialist coming here later to talk about Dr. Didi. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. Yes, correct. Which is a fast-growing research in machine learning, super interesting. Still lots of questions to answer, but there are some progress. It's important for engineers and researchers, scientists to be aware of fairness research. Again, everyone on those there should know about it, but for them, that's the technical part. We deal with formal fairness criteria and metrics. As one area research has focused on defining formal fairness criteria. There are the three main definitions that everyone starts with. There's the only one. But for instance, when you start learning about fairness research, you start with independence, separation, and sufficiency. Just high level point. So here's those three. Last time I checked, there are 20 of them, 20 metrics. There's 20 ways of measuring fairness. But those are the most famous ones. So for independence, it deals with the quality of outcomes, equality of selection, which was what the software company was using. So separation is the quality of errors, quality of outcomes given a threshold, and a sufficiency is a choice to reflect the same accuracy per group, it's calibration. And just so it's not too high level in having an idea. So for instance, independence, the acceptance rates of males and females and other genders should be the same. That's considered independence for people that use the independence. Now, separation is the rejection rates for males and females and other genders, despite being qualified enough for admission, which is a false negative, should be the same. So it's a different way of seeing it. And sufficiency, the changes of males and females and other genders being qualified enough, given an admission decision, which is the predictive variable, should be the same. And as you see, it gets a little bit more confusing. And as it goes to the 20th fairness metric, is super complicated. And that's why I have doctors studying fairness specifically on that. The whole point is that there's no right answer. Some of the definitions are different and incompatible. You cannot simultaneously satisfy all definitions. So there's no like, okay, let's do fairness in our model. Get this one, right? Like, it depends on the context, on the data that you're using, who is going to be impacted by it. And which is very important, it do not take into consideration intersectionality and co-founders. So intersectionality is the idea that people that belong to more than one marginalized group suffering different from someone that is just one, for instance. So Black women is going to have a different experience than white women. And it keeps adding. So trans Black women have a totally different experience than people, Black women. So intersectionality is also tricky in fairness. I'm not sure what it is, and that's the question I want to do to Dr. Niti. Someone do that for me if I'm not here, please. And the confounders is around causality. If you don't know, causality is the study of causation, because correlation is not necessarily causation, and I hope that's clear. So there's so many confounders that happen. We're affected by so many items. It's very hard to put the human experience into AI model. And fairness, of course, is going to suffer from that. And then frameworks. So ensuring ethical adoption deployment, of course, is a complex and with many layers, and requires a comprehensive frameworks. You need to account for ethical concerns at every stage, and no one tool will be a solution for every problem, which is repeating item. So for different aspects, so starting with leadership, we need an informed leadership, a leader that knows, are aware of what's happening, clear ethics, ombuds with power to challenge projects within an ethics charter. We want to staff ethics training and a whistleblower system. This whistleblower system is a very interesting. It's a challenge that a lot of companies still don't have it. It's like, yeah, you have a problem. Someone assaulted it, like, you were assaulted. Report to HR. I was like, what if HR is a problem? Or report to a CEO, and what if CEO is the problem? What's the whistleblower system? We need accountability systems here, because if your boss, and they're all friends and they do something wrong and they're on a vacation together, well, like, no, you feel hopeless. Development, identify projects for well-being good, involve stakeholders, diverse development team, include ethics, advocate, and impact assessment. We're going to give you a tool on impact assessment. Security and maintenance, regular testing of assumptions, data and algorithms, regular training and discussion of use and impact. And finally, transparency, internal communication to developers, to internal users, public information, informing those impacted, very important, and process for those impacted to get explanation. And finally, the last slide before lunch. Wow, I'm really on time. I'm doing good job. So yeah, I could go over, but I think I'm going to give you a higher break, like a bigger break, and then I'm going to meet, reassess on 1 p.m. because I think 1 hour lunch is not enough. I need a napping 15 minutes. Just kidding. So one tool that we have is from CIOC, Strategy Council. CIO, former Strategy Council, they just changed the names, and I have to update the slide just because of them. So which is now called Digital Governance Council. It's the world's first consensus-based standard, and there's a range of topics: risk management frameworks, ethics by design, deployment, monitoring, maintenance, automated decision systems, and appeals of decisions made by automated decision systems. They have standards around all of that. It's a non-for-profit. I really recommend. I'm going to use the tool at the very end. I'm going to show the tool, not use it, where you can get it. I'm going to put a QR code. And that concludes what you can do. And I'm going to try to involve all those tools later. I'm going to do a very quick recap in the 5 minutes when we come back. And I'm going to start using that for the next case study. Okay, we're going to follow those strategies, try to follow like team diversity, include that on the solutions. So before I conclude everything, go to the lunch break. Let's have some discussion. Any questions that we have? Yes. For me, yes. Mm-hmm. 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 I wish it was. So I have to repeat question for people that are online. For a startup setting, for instance, you have like 4 people on your team. You already have limited like resources. You're already dealing with a lot of boundaries with the costs. As a student, you have your own limitations, time and money. And in small businesses in general, it's quite challenging to go through those frameworks. Yes. So what can you do? first thing is attending our ethics workshop is a good start. Because I wish I could say like do this, but most of the cases, but even for big companies, is think about it. Like just have a perspective. That's if every company had ideas like, oh, I have to implement ethics in AI strategies. I don't have the resources, but you think about it, make part of the business plan. That's a part of it, because as we scale the startup, the whole point of startup is to scale at some point. So if you have that on your strategy, just like I'm going to scale, and as a scale, I'm going to thinking about that, then that's good. That's a start. Because the thing is, for a startup, you start with an idea. It's an idea that you want to move forward and have people that believe in your idea, and have those 4 people that want to start that. Now, hopefully, on the idea is around the ethics, right? If I'm doing AI to steal people's password, that's not ethical, right? So there is already an idea when you construct that and you put it as a proposal to get grants. The ethics at some level is interesting. It's part of the concept. So the first thing is that include that on the business definition that ethics in AI is a concern. Now, there are some resources that I'm going to share, which is the second part of this, the second part today after the lunch, on some tools that are available free. They are easy to use. Of course, do the basics, because again, we cannot guarantee they're going to be ethical from the workshop, or we're using a tool or doing a research on fairness. But they are a starting point, and you can say, hey, I follow these guidelines, and this is one of them to do, and that it doesn't cost that much, right? A lot of the ethics is like, oh, I follow conversation with people affected by it, and you report that, and it's a great start. And like the whole workshop is like, let's talk about it, and that's it. If you do that, it's great, and you're here, so you're doing a good job. Any other question? Yes. Yeah. Mhm. So it's called positionality. Okay, so I think for the next part, we can get a microphone for people in the audience so everyone can hear. Uh, so positionality, which is then from the context of your own experience, also affect, despite your intersectionality or who you are, where you're coming from also matters. Is that, did I get it right? Kind of? Can I just, sorry, because I'll have a hard time repeating that. And you've just talked that some people online can also hear.
Do you need me to repeat?
Yes,
okay. I come from humanities background, and in critical theory, we have this discussion of, intersectionality. It was proposed by Kimberly Crenshaw, who is a university professor in the United States, that, intersectionality has to do with people at different identity positions, different, intersections of gender, race, sex, and, their sexuality, orientation, and etc. So this kind of idea is still popular and is still understood in different disciplines in a way that is not quite, the way that is accepted in humanities. Because in humanities, just before, idea of assemblages kind of questions this idea of intersectionality as being a proper criteria or a framework through which we can kind of ethically judge people or ethically kind of hire people when we want to recruit them. So I wonder if positionality is also taken into consideration when we are working by AI in creating kind of patterns, algorithms. So the question is, to what extent this positionality and the transience of this positionality is important? To what extent it is taken into consideration when we want to kind of recruit people? Because the position from which you're enunciating your identity may change. For example, a person who has certain disability may kind of overcome that disability. So that kind of positionality where we consider, for example, a Black, lesbian, disabled woman at the bottom of the hierarchy may change. So it is a kind of transient situation. To what extent AI and ethics in AI kind of addresses that kind of problem?
Thank you very much. To be honest, positionality is the first time I hear that word, which I still understand the background. I understand the difference on intentionality, and I hope everyone got the high level, which is definitely want to learn more about it. And which is very interesting because when I talk about it, and that's why I added the co-founders, right? We are affected by items in a different ways. And I don't know if anyone has a background on Bayesian theorem, the probability of something happened given that something else happened. That's the idea. But on Bayesian network specifically, which is we use Bayesian theorems a lot, which is the study of cause and effect, but not yet. It's a transparent model. It has some issues. It still doesn't deal with causality properly. Causality comes from the study of causalities. Causality was proposed in 2000. No, wait. Judea Pearl proposed causality. He got the Turing Award in 2013. No, 2011. He won the Turing Award on causality, and I'm very embarrassed now because that was my background. But my background is in Bayesian network. He did causality. That's how we got the Turing Award. So causality is the study of causation. How, let's give an example. Does smoke cause cancer? I hope you say yes. Yes, yes, you're in a medical, yeah. Yes, does cause cancer. How do you know it causes cancer? How can you do a random control trial with smoking? Like, hey, you smoke, you don't smoke. Or get a set of twins, you have the twins smoke, the other half twins don't smoke, and let's see what happens. Like, it's hard, right? Like, how can you test such a thing? Because you cannot do, again, the Tylenol thing. My headache went away with the Tylenol, would have went away without the Tylenol. Same thing with smoking. Now, causality is the study of causation. And it was the first time the causation was put into mathematical terms that you can actually measure how if smoking causes cancer. And it's a very complex field. It's very hard to understand. There's stuff, for instance, by observing, so that's called selection bias. By observing some factors, you are making things conditionally dependent that were not before. Let me give you an example. You have this system. I'm going to try to here and here. So stay with me. So you have this, you're making an app, right? An app that is connected to your house. It's an alarm system. And this app will trigger by two things. That's how you construct your app. It can be triggered by a burglar. Someone breaks in, there's a sensor and like triggers the alarm. Or it can be triggered by fire. Okay, fire triggers alarm, good. And then the app sends a text message to your phone. And also we know by common knowledge that fire causes smoke. Thank you. Okay, so we're in the same page. So fire causes smoke, have the system, fire causes smoke, fire triggers alarm, burglar triggers alarm, an alarm triggers text message. Okay, that's a Bayesian network. Now you are at work and your app get an alarm. Something's happening on your house. You get very worried and hopefully you go to your car, start driving. And then just as you drive, right around the corner, you look at your house. And now you're gonna do another observation. You're gonna see that the house, there's no smoke coming, there's no smoke. coming out of your house. So now your belief system is smoke is observation that it's no, which makes the belief that fire is, now your belief of fire decreases. Like it's very unlikely that fire happens. But what's interesting is now by observing smoke, what else happened? Burglar increase. Your belief that burglar increase. So even though smoke has no correlation with burglar, by observing alarm, actually in this case, now smoke is correlated, that is conditionally dependent to burglar. Does that illustrate that how things that are not connected by observing one variable are connected? In that same sense, when you're observing cancer, for instance, or smoking causes cancer, by observing some variables, there's a whole study I would recommend for a starting point, The Book of Why. I actually have here, I can show you. The Book of Why by Judea Pearl and Mackenzie. It talks about that in a lay terms. It's not that easy reading. It's not my favorite. Judea Pearl is great, not a great writer though. Hope it's being recorded. Imagine he watched this. Not that he's bad at writing, Judea Pearl, I'm sorry. I hope it does never get to him. But it's very condensed just because the topic is hard to understand. It's very non-intuitive. Okay, I'm gonna get to the point about positionality. Point is, there is a study around that quantifies co-founders. Because for instance, we're making a model and there's a probability of brain cancer. You're not gonna put the probability of an asteroid hitting the Earth, but it's possible and it's all inside the whole co-founder, and that's what causality does. It measures all things and how affect them differently. And then you can analyze now single one factor, and I think where this positionality comes from, like in the idea, and intersectionality. And then is the study that you have one factor and see exactly that one factor, let's say now smoking, affects one cause. So that we do have the tools, and that's like this causality study is being like increasing a lot. That's the main goal. It's on AAAI when I joined AAAI in 2018. There's like a session now. It's just like some papers now. It's a whole dedicated session on AI around causality, because we want to know what causes what. And causality was disputed for a long time. And if you read the book, it's interesting why. There's a whole lobby on and as causality was a long time was not studied because of the smoking companies. They were lobbying researchers to say, well, we cannot prove that. You cannot prove that. Yeah, it's correlated. You're not making twin smoke, so you cannot say that. And for a long time, you could not prove that. And then finally, in 2000s, Pro could say, I can prove that. I can say smoking causes cancer. Here's a degree of factor. Here's exactly how just getting smoke. Because for a long time, they're saying, oh, there's a gene factor of some people are more propense to like have cancer. How do you know is the smoking? There's a ambience factor, like, if you live in an industrial zone, it's likely you can also get cancer. So there's a lot of things, excuse that you can say on cancer. And for a long time, there's no causation that we could prove. Now we do. And that's the only thing that I know related to this specific on how you can single one item on many items in one cause. I really recommend talking that with Professor Nidhi. I think she's the expert on that, especially on fairness and how that affects how many multiple items affect one cause. But in my background on probabilistic graphical models, that's how I know to single one specific item. So there is a research area around that. Which I like. I really like it. And if you ever have a chance to Book of Why, that's the name of the book. Yes. Yes, please.
Thanks. Sorry, I have one of those really quiet voices, and I know there's no way I kind of get my voice to come all the way up front to you. I think the point that the previous speaker made is really important, because for me, it's at the heart of ethics and AI, particularly if you understand ethics as a starting place. So what do I mean by that? So ethics generally as a discipline is concerned about what is other to ourselves, right? We run into an ethical situation when we're confronted with someone who's other to us, whether that's a patient, whether that's a family member, whether that's the environment or anything, but we're acting in a social world. So ethics comes up in a social world. So when you're talking about positionality and identities, how is it that we take this world of other people and we start to make it into something objective that we can analyze? So what are the ethics of taking, I don't know, say someone's identity involves gender as a construct, like female. Well, what is the ethics of taking femaleness and making it a confounder? Ugh, that doesn't even sound right, right? How do you take someone's identity and feed it into machine learning, right? That's an ethics in and of itself. So if someone wanted to say, Michael, what is the likelihood of you dying of cancer one day? And they were to say, well, what are some things I can easily study? Well, you look male, right? You're white, you're in your 40s, right? You work as a physician, you spend a lot of nights without sleeping because of call, right? You know, you'll take certain things, but those aren't necessarily variables that I would decide to be included into the formula, right? So the ethics are, how is it that we take someone other than us and we feed them into some kind of an algorithm? How is it that we objectify their identity, right? Recognizing from a positionality perspective, usually we like to describe our own identity, and it's an identity that changes over the course of our life. I think that's what you were saying, and that's how I'd respond to it. But I think it's a really important thing because this is at the heart of ethics and AI.
Indeed. And I think I don't have an answer for it. I think if there was an answer for it, there was no workshop. However, there's a microphone there, a request. We need to worry about it in the sense of like, we're going to talk about, first of all, we need to address. I think his point is what's important for you on like gender as a construct is not important for someone else. And then comes also from the privacy aspect. Like to have the option of being forgotten. It's in the sense of like, you put your face app, like your picture, like your identify you on Instagram, do have the option to be forgotten. In the sense, on an AI system, if you put gender as a construct, technically, you can update this prior and remove, depending on the model you construct, to do not consider this prior. So I think the answer here is give the option to the person, which is also come from communicating. Me as a person, if I'm going to do an assessment on you, do you want to be assessed based on gender? Yes or no? And then you update a prior. That's how I would do as in a very scientific way, because that's how I know how it works. I think it's not up to me to decide. And I think that's an important conversation that we should ask everyone. I can answer, that's my answer. And then you're gonna ask medicals about that. And you're gonna ask people that are affected by gender, and you're gonna ask everyone. And then hopefully as together as a community, you have something, which is very hard to come up with an agreement. I get it. But that's society, right? We're all different, and there's never gonna be one answer that fits everyone. People are still fighting to say like, we're all the same, even though the color of my skin is different. Like we're still on this level in some places where the way you look matters to some other people. So unfortunately, pushing boundaries on that is talking about and normalizing having this conversation. That's all I know from my side. There's to talk there in the
I think I got the microphone now. Yeah. I just wanted to quickly comment. I'm really happy actually you brought up Bayesian inference, because I think that answered that question quite accurately. The only issue, of course, with Bayesian inference is that it's based on prior beliefs. Yes. And if your prior beliefs are wrong, then you start with a wrong concept.
Yes.
And you can update those beliefs as you acquire more evidence. But for example, if your prior belief is, I believe that the earth is flat, it's gonna be very complicated in order to get to something that is actually true or actually correct.
Yes.
And that is, I think, if you start with a subjective approach to this, which is a prior belief, updating that belief is going to be very complicated. I think.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process indeed.
Yeah. Correct.
One other item that I like to, because the update of beliefs is important. People change, and I think that's it. Like your AI model, and that's the positionality should change with time. Like the model should not be static, should not be here. Now, what changes the input? The model should also adapt by the person asking it. And I think that's part of the answer, hopefully. But again, we're having this conversation and I'm happy to have that. Yes.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I missed missing the thread a little bit here, because there's basically reality, right? I mean, what is, and what you want is you want your models to reflect reality that are independent of people's opinions, and people like does the car do this? Does the ball fall? Are my hands this long? Am I do I have male parts or female parts? I mean, this is just reality. So you want I guess I'm kind of missing a little bit of thread. We want our models to be accurate.
Yeah.
And we want our models to be real.
Yeah.
Right. So then how
we model that?
Yeah. I mean, how is that playing into
that part I can answer on reality.
Yeah.
All models, especially on Bayesian terms or causality, they are constructed with specialists, right? You're not going to ask the lay people to make a model of brain surgery, right? So when it goes to that, and then the brain surgeon, like the medical is going to put all items, what affect tumor on brain, you're going to connect this is independent of this, because I know, I study. We rely on human expertise no matter what. The thing is, we cannot make a blind eye for doctors. Like, we use your cell phone, we trust our society. I have no idea how cell phone works or how the things are connected to my cell phone or this microphone or this computer. We rely on people's knowledge to things work. Like, I have to rely that they test my cell phone to not give me cancer, or they're trying to, because as a society, that's how it works, open knowledge. Now, we do have this false concept that people on gender specifically, when we talk about, that trans women are not aware of their bodies. They're pretty much aware that when we say trans women are women, we're not saying their bodies are the same. They're not, their experience is the same. They know their bodies are different. They know their bodies need hormonal therapy, and they're very aware that a model would take consideration. You take a hormonal therapy, your body is different. You need some adjustments for that. So I think especially on this gender thing, it's interesting because people think that, but overall the general population has the idea that, like, when I say all lives matter versus Black lives matter, no one's saying that white lives don't matter. We're just saying that Blacks' lives matter, yet they are being affected by racially biased. Like, that's how we saw on the application. It's not that we want to, like, okay, kill all the whites. That's not how it works. It's just let's focus attention that this inequality you have in society and fix it. For trans women, it's the same. We're not often like, oh, trans women do not want to trick straight men and to say, hey, you thought like you slept with me, I'm a trans. Like, no one wants to do that. Yes. Exactly. Both. I think that's a simple point. Yeah. It is different, and it is. Exactly. You can. You can bias collect the data. Yeah, you're completely correct. You're completely right, and that's the point. You are right, because on the same level, like, what if I give the flat earther the collect data on gravity? Like, you cannot. And that, again, I default to the specialists. Like, we have specialists on, like, NASA. They are good and they know around it. On health, on gender studies, we have specialists, even though people like to dismiss gender studies. We have the study of trans body. We have the study of racial impact on society. We have specialists. And my answer for all that is that we rely on the specialists. Let people that know how to collect data, how to that data impact, collect the data. Let's involve the conversation, because I think even though I mean, I'm a white man speaking right now for trans rights or for women's rights. Like the thing is, we need to know our place, and that's for everyone. It's like if I'm gonna do about racial bias, I need to talk with someone that is affected by it, which is not me. If I'm gonna talk with someone that is trans right, I have to talk to someone that is trans because it's not me. I just need to be considerate around that. And the data collection that you brought is very important. The way we collect data, and that's how you talk about causality. Because if you specifically look for one item, that's what we call selection bias. There's some instructional variable. There's different variables and different ways you can collect. You can collect through a proxy, but the way you collect the data also impacts the model. And indeed, the bias of the people collecting data also affects. So it's a very important conversation. And we really appreciate that the topic. Yes.
Sorry, just, when you talk about taking something that's real. So think about the parole example he used. Imagine what variables did they include? They're going to be variables that are easy to measure, right? So there would probably be number of years since performed the crime, race of individual, sex of individual. But did they include a measure of remorse? Well, how do you measure remorse? So is there something actually biased to begin with in the sense of what variables are even includable in a model, right? Because we tend to include what we can objectify or measure, and that's the ethics. How do you take something subjective and objectify it for measurement?
Just a second for the microphone. I have a microphone here and can talk. Just 1 second, because otherwise people online cannot hear.
And then you have implications, but then you have implications of implications, and then you have implications of, you have these, infinitely long rules, and you have extremely limited, mechanism to decide what is real or not real. You can only investigate a few levels of interaction, right? So it gets more and more complicated. The more complicated reality that you're trying to model, the more difficult it is to be unbiased in any context, because it depends on what are you using the model for, and what rules are you testing and verifying, right?
They have someone?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm contributing something that no one was really looking for. Just speaking as someone who is trans, yes, very aware of physiological differences. One of the questions, though, obviously, is like, when it comes to collecting data, how much does some of the parts you have really matter compared to things like presentation and identity? And it's not like some of those things don't have super clear answers. I mean, in my case, I am non-binary to some extent. Sometimes I do present situationally for different things. When I was crossing the border, I did not present as trans because it makes me like I have fewer issues with doing that than some other trans people might, because some other trans people have gender. That's when people talk about gender being complicated and whatnot. That is true, and it is sometimes easier just to ask the male and female question on the thing. But there's also when it comes to the question of what to record, how often do people check your physical parts and then change their interaction with you based on that? It's based way more on things like presentation and whatnot. And so gender identity, then you might ask okay, gender identity somewhat better captures that because it generally is a better reflection of how you interact with the world. But, then there are some complications of, do you pass? Which direction are you going? What country are you, all sorts of other things. So sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. It just, regarding trans people specifically, there are extra questions to ask that, just asking the blank male or female is not going to lead to the best outcomes in most scenarios for collecting data.
Yeah, thank you. Overall, it's good. It's a good to have inputs, and I think it's overall is we are aware that people are different, because And there's so many things. I mean, not even talk about abortion or what is a woman, and people say, oh, woman, like it's a person that can birth a child. Okay, the person cannot birth a child, then it's not a woman. So it's like there's more to it. But the thing is, usually those conversations are the smoke screen, like sexuality, like talk about gender expression, right? They talk about sexual orientation, which usually on politics is a smoke screen, just like, hey, like, kill. I'm not gonna say that. I'm saying like kill a lot, but queer people should not exist, and then suddenly pass a bill that approve billions to oil and it's usually still a tactics on around that, because if it is, you're not affected by me. If I'm not a woman, it's not affected. So what's the point of me telling it? It's usually, again, is a point of, and we talk about diversity, is talking with people who are affected by it and see how affect them. And I think that's it. We talk with women, how it affect you as a woman. Like, what's your experience? It was a Black woman. You were a Black trans woman. Like, and then it's not going to give advantage. In the end, it was just acknowledging it. Yes. Mic for them there.
Thank you very much for pointing out that you may ask, these people, you need to rely on local knowledges as well. But also the question is, in AI, when you consider ethics in AI, to what extent you incorporate the knowledge of people who are specialists in that, area of study. Like, for example, you mentioned women and gender studies, or for example, sociology, for example, those who are working in philosophy. To what extent ethics in AI incorporate those knowledges? To what extent they recruit people who are kind of specialists in that area of study to help them decide if the algorithms that they are kind of producing is inclusive of many intersectionalities that you mentioned?
I'm just gonna wrap it up. It's like, I default to science. We're in a scientific field. I default to science. Again, as a society, we build upon knowledge. I believe this projector is working because someone studied how a projector works. And because of that, I can use my Google Slides, which is I believe someone builds slides is working, and that's upon knowledge. I'm using things other people. I'm gonna go to the doctor. I believe the doctor is studied for it. He can say, take this pill. I'm not gonna question it because I wanna survive. And that's it. I know people like to question, but that's why we have conference, that we have peer review papers. As society, we don't have one perfect human being that can tell who's the right or not. It's just, as a collectively, we build up on knowledge. And that's all I know how to do, is I rely on science. Like, and that's our measurement on logic. We believe in logic. And for instance, even though sometimes we are deferred, there's a lot of nowadays science deniers, right? It's like, how do they know? Like, science, you can believe science while typing on iPhone, but your iPhone is working because you are in a building that have 16 floors and it's not falling. We build upon science. We build upon knowledge that other people, we as humans, we want to evolve and be our best, right? You want to be good. You want to live. You want to live longer. You want my family to live longer. I want to have food. I want to live in a house. And that's what society is. And that's why politics is important, because it does not affect me, affect everyone. On AI is the same. We rely on what we know. The thing is, I think it's very dangerous to say we don't know much, hence let's ban it. That's what happened to ChatGPT. That's what I did a talk on ChatGPT. On the academic, my talk was on ChatGPT on academics. And a lot of the universities default to ban it. Let's not use it, because students are going to create a lot of false, going to start plagiarism and just going to ask it. But then you go to it, it's like, and you talk with teachers, and the teacher's going to say, it's very clear. I don't need a tool to see if the student made on ChatGPT or not. Because when a student make an essay, you can see it so the professors know the student, like the mistakes they do, how they relate to the world. The thing is, again, they ban it, but they did not talk with the teachers or did not with the students. And usually this tool is so powerful, it can help so many people. And there already a study, actually Amy, we hired someone specifically in K-12 education system to adapt AI tools into the school, K-12. How can you bring AI and teach AI from the beginning? Because in the end, you're always gonna, in the future, more and more, we're using AI on everyday life. And that's it, like default to science. We're on a scientific conference and we do what we know and we trust each other as humans. I don't think we're inherently bad. We're inherently good. I want to, go home safe, sleep. I want my best to myself. And I hope that everyone around me wants the same. Yeah. Final remarks so we can conclude.
The fact is that it's impossible not to be biased. Like every
it is impossible not to be biased.
Has their bias. ChatGPT has its own bias. In fact, there's this huge controversy right now that it's woke, right? And there's all these people are talking about how, and Elon Musk wants to create a new ChatGPT that's not woke, and he's investing all this money into it, right? Yeah. Well, and where did it get its woke ideas, right? And you can tell that it's woke because you actually ask it questions and it responds in a biased way. Where did it get its bias from? So it's impossible not to be biased. So, and there's a whole, you talked about science and about how science is unbiased. Science is not unbiased. I mean, science,
science,
it's very biased.
That's why study of men is way like, that's why when they extract what is the thing that extract a piece and it's really painful because they do experiments on women. So it's different, right? Exactly. It is biased. But I think it's biased towards whom? And who's making the decision to fight those biases?
Well, and so I think that, when it comes to fairness and the discussion about fairness is the only thing, the only thing that we can guarantee is that we're having these conversations and that we're trying to our best to make it unbiased. But in the end, it is ultimately going to be biased.
And as long as we're conscious that there's always bias and what I'm doing for myself may affect others, that's what we can do. As long as we do that, again, right? It's here, I'm a white man. I can talk about my experience, which is going to be different. As long as I can give the opportunity to everyone, give their experience, and allow everyone to live, and I do not dictate others, it's all good. I mean, as society, we have conference for the AI for the good because we want to use to improve our lives. And I think we're towards that. I mean, humans are inherently good. They're bad when you do not give them the same opportunities, when you do not give food, shelter. Then humans, of course, will be bad because everyone just wants to survive. Anyway, let's wrap it up this. I see you at 1 p.m. after the lunch. Thanks for your participation. I hope I get to see most of you again after lunch. Watch out for your nap.